Hello everybody and welcome to your Beast Mastery Season 3 preview. So in this video I'm going to go over Beast Mastery's talent tree rework with new talents and removed talents and reshuffled talents, a total rework of the Dark Ranger hero tree, and the new tier set bonuses. And just to top off this video and the other spec previews I'm going to do, I don't care too much about numbers right now, and I think neither should you. Day 0 PTR data like this has never been a good predictor of live performance, and so you do not have to pick your main spec or class until the patch drops. So I'd encourage you to just, look at the mechanics, see if you like the gameplay. Will the numbers be there? There's literally no way to tell, and therefore no need to worry about it. When sims do become available, I will show them and I'll keep you updated on them, so you should subscribe for that. But for now, we're looking at mechanics. In general, I'm trying to step up my video game here on YouTube a bit, so please leave a comment with any feedback and requests/suggestions when you watch the video. And finally, this video will be mostly talking and text. This whole series of videos will be, so feel free to just listen to the video while walking or commuting or whatever you want. Let's go into the Beast Mastery changes in Season 3. So at the very top here, we have the Mastery change. So Beast Mastery's Mastery stat has always... did I just mix up how I pronounce mastery and mastery? I don't know, it just feels weird just saying Beast Mastery's Mastery stat. Anyway, it now improves all damage and not just pet damage, though it does improve pet damage much more strongly than your general damage at a 1.875 to 1 ratio. So, 1 point of mastery will increase your pet damage by around 1.9% and your regular damage by 1%. Next up is the wholly redesigned Dire Beast mechanics, so both the ability itself and the talent and a lot of surrounding talents around Dire Beast as a whole. This is probably the biggest change going for Beast Mastery just straight up mechanically in Season 3. So Dire Beast is now a passive that causes bleed ticks to have a chance of summoning Dire Beasts, which basically work as before, you summon them and you get some stats. Bloodshed, our previous 1 minute cooldown that we would sometimes use before, now lasts 12 seconds, down from 18, but its tick rate is now 1 second, down from 3 seconds. And these bleed ticks have an increased chance of proccing Dire Beasts, so they've introduced some synergy between this 1 minute cooldown and Dire Beast. Pretty cool. It now takes 6 Dire Beasts to summon Huntmaster's Call, when it used to be 3, and Huntmaster's Call is this mechanic that you probably haven't been thinking about for a while, that improves, or rather summons these either Hades or Fenrir, and they will each do a ton of damage. Now, I expect that we will probably be summoning more Dire Beasts than ever, and they will be passive and everything. So even though we will now take more Dire Beasts to summon Huntmaster's Call, I do think it's a net buff, not least because they've also buffed the damage done by Fenrir, which is one of the 2 sort of wolves that you can spawn with this talent. Damage of that one has been buffed by 500%, and it was already not terrible damage, so yeah. I'm not sure if it's a net nerf or buff 100%. I'm fairly sure, I'm virtually certain we will be summoning more Dire Beasts overall. Will it be twice as many, which is what we would need to sort of reach the same number of Huntmaster's Call procs as before? Probably not, but that is what this buff is meant to sort of compensate a little bit for. Finally, as it relates to Dire Beast, there's a new talent altogether, a new capstone node on the right side of the tree. It's called Wild Speaker, and it causes Dire Beasts to obey kill command at 30% effectiveness, and Beasted Wrath now also affects Dire Beast, increasing the damage dealt by 15% for 15 seconds. So basically Dire Beasts work much more like real pets now, at least in terms of the abilities they use. Of course, we have a talent that lets them use Beast Cleave, and now we also have this talent that lets them use kill command, albeit at reduced effectiveness, and they will now also benefit in their damage from Beasted Wrath. So that's pretty neat. Next up is a Execute Damage Profile nerf. So they took Killer Instinct, which is a talent that increases kill command's damage by 50% on targets below 35% HP, which was really powerful on a difficult fights this last tier like a Moxie, where phase 2, which starts at 40%, is really difficult, and Beast Mastery was just really, really good there. As you can see here, my first kill on this boss, with my guild, which was roughly World 100 or so on a 2-day schedule, I completely just bonkers carried all the damage from the beginning of the intermission onwards, and a big part of that was this 50% buff that I was getting to almost all of my kill commands, combined with us lusting here and so on. So this like the ability for Beast Mastery to do this in the future will be significantly reduced. They have made it relatively numbers neutral overall though, by making it a flat 10% kill command damage increase, which is quite boring. So they flattened the damage out to be overall the same, but we are now not so execute heavy. And in some cases this will be good, but in some specific cases it can be quite bad, like Moxie, it would just be a net nerf, for example. Next up, we have some other miscellaneous stuff that I wasn't sure where to put. So Shower of Blood and Venomous Bite have been removed. These were the Bloodshed choice nodes that were just below Bloodshed on the right side of the tree. Bloodshed has now moved to a different point in the tree, as we'll see in a moment, and so it makes sense to remove these. Venomous Bite was quite strong, but unexciting, so I won't miss it too much, and we've literally never ever got to play Shower of Blood. Like, they introduced it quite a long time ago, we never ever used it. So yeah, no big deal. A Murder of Crows has also been removed, which was just this passive that happened in the background. Every, I think it was 5 kill commands, you would just summon a Murder of Crows dot on your target. It was fine, but it was kind of boring, so I won't miss it. We also have a new talent in the class tree. So this is a choice node with Explosive Shot. So it's either Explosive Shot or this one. And all it does is increase your pet damage by 4% baseline. But then if you also run the Blackrock Munitions talent, which is like, you will be running this, effectively it's 6% pet damage. Essentially what they're saying here is just, we don't care for Beast Mastery using Explosive Shot. So just don't use it and you get 6% pet damage in return. So that's completely fine. I don't think Explosive Shot ever really felt like it made much sense for Beast Mastery. I'm cool with it. Barrage has been removed. Not really too bothered about that either. We never used it, so that's cool. Barb Shot now replaces Steady Shot. I don't know why. It doesn't matter because we never used Steady Shot anyway, but yeah, that happened. And finally, Hunter's Prey no longer adds AoE to Kill Shot / Black Arrow. So this mostly just ensures that Dark Ranger tuning doesn't become a mess. Like they can improve the damage of Black Arrow and stuff without making the AoE completely bonkers, with Hunter's Prey enabling straight up AoE Black Arrows, which we don't have. You may think we have that, but what's driving the AoE behind Black Arrow is actually Bleak Powder, which is technically a separate mechanic. Next up comes the huge Dark Ranger rework. So just for a bit of background here, Dark Ranger BM was probably the worst hero talent in the entire game. It was, numbers-wise, 30% plus behind Pack Leader, the other hero talent for Beast Mastery, in literally all situations. So it definitely needed something, and that's what we're getting into. So first of all, Embrace the Shadows, which is the shadow damage-based self-healing that you would get, and Shadow Surge, which was just random AoE damage splash from Black Arrow, have been removed, and they've introduced some new talents. For example, Umbral Reach. So Umbral Reach doubles Black Arrow's dot damage, which isn't as good as it sounds because Black Arrow's dot essentially does no damage, but that's doubled. Okay, cool. But more crucially, if Bleak Powder damages 2 or more enemies, and I should mention, so Bleak Powder is the AoE mechanic for Dark Ranger, and previously it worked in such a way that when you would cast Black Arrow with Beast Cleave active, it would cause this Bleak Powder explosion. Well, now you no longer need to have Beast Cleave active already. And so now, whenever you Black Arrow, Beast Cleave or not, if there are 2 or more targets up, then you will gain Beast Cleave for 6 seconds if you have talented into Beast Cleave. This is really awesome because it massively reduces the number of multi-shots that we have to cast, which is one of the worst parts about BM AoE, which is every third global or so has to be a multi-shot that does extremely pathetic damage, but we're only having to press it to activate Beast Cleave. So now, as Dark Ranger at least, we can use Black Arrow to keep these Beast Cleaves going, and that's really, really nice. Yeah, big fan of this one. Next up, the above 80% and below 20% rule for being able to cast Black Arrow is now baseline and not tied to the Bell Tolls talent. So the Bell Tolls has now just been changed, and this is essentially given that it's Dark Ranger and you get to choose every single node. So when you cast Black Arrow now, you get a 3% damage buff for 12 seconds, multiple instances of which can overlap. So if you're casting a ton of Black Arrows, then you're getting multiple instances of this 3% damage buff, which is really good. I should note here that you may already be thinking, wait, does that mean multi-dotting? But what it says is that every cast of Black Arrow gives you a 3% damage buff for 12 seconds. So multi-dotting it for this buff won't actually be a thing. We may multi-dot Black Arrow anyway, but I doubt it because it's so weak. It'll probably be one of those like non-zero increases, but you really have to be, like, you have to nail it, and it's going to be pretty difficult to get the most out of. And for most people, it's not going to be worth it. I expect, at least. We'll see. But yeah, that's pretty cool. It's kind of boring in a way, but it's just raw flat damage. Next up is Soul Drinker has been redesigned. It was this thing that we never ever used. It was a choice node, and it gave us a 10% chance of getting Black Arrow procs when a target with Black Arrow dies. That happened very rarely, and the proc chance was tiny. Even if it was 100% chance, it would be kind of bad, I think. So now just, essentially, it's just a 15% Black Arrow buff and Bleak Powder 20% buff. Alright. Next up is Withering Fire, which is basically this Black Arrow multi-firing during your cooldowns. When you used Black Arrow during your cooldowns, it would fire multiple targets. But this had a nasty habit of just, if you had a huge amount of targets, it would often, or at least occasionally, Black Arrow targets that already had the Black Arrow dot, which is just kind of silly. Now they've made it so that it will prefer targets that do not already have the dot, which is a nice little change. Probably not super consequential because I don't expect Black Arrow's dot damage to be very impressive, but we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong about that. And next up is Dark Hounds no longer have a chance to spawn alongside Dire Beast summons. That's reasonable if we're expecting to cast a lot more Dire Beasts, or rather summon a lot more Dire Beasts going forward. So this is fine. And finally, Phantom Pain, which is the mechanic that causes Kill Command to essentially like copy some of its damage onto targets that have the Black Arrow dot. The damage of that splash has been increased by 30%. So this might be one more reason to spread around Black Arrows. It's going to be a little bit like marksmanship now, and I won't get too in the weeds, but essentially you may have to end up choosing, like, do you want maximum AoE damage, in which case you might multi-dot, or do you want prioritized damage where you send all of your Black Arrows into a primary target to maximize damage done to that, but then you sacrifice a little bit of your Phantom Pain sort of kill command splashing damage. For the most part, I think prio damage will be the correct play. At least it is for marksmanship right now, but it adds something to think about in the rotation. Next up, we have a few pack leader changes. So Shell Cover, which is a very poor defensive node that pack leader has been buffed. Now, when you drop below 60% HP, you get a 15% damage reduction. And if your health then continues to drop lower than 60%, this damage reduction increases to a maximum of 35% at 10% health. And this can happen once every 90 seconds. So this is a nice buff. It's still not a great defensive node because just the fact that it'll trigger even when you don't necessarily want it to. Like, you'll get one big hit that takes you to 40%, but then no other damage goes out. Well, that's going to proc Shell Cover, and its damage reduction is going to be worthless. And then if you get hit by a dot or something right after, well, then you don't have Shell Cover on it because it's going to be on its internal cooldown. Passive defensives are just generally worse than active defenses, unless those passive defenses are really, really strong. So it's an improvement, but it's still nowhere near as good as Smokescreen is for Dark Ranger, which, to remind you, especially if you're BM main and you haven't played Dark Ranger in a while, its Smokescreen is what makes your acceleration give you a few seconds of survival of the fittest, 40% DR. And another small one, the Better Together node in the pack leader tree no longer reduces half of the pack leader's cooldown from 30 seconds to 25 seconds. It's just a flat pet damage buff now, and also improves Frenzy's attack speed. So yeah, just a little bit of a pet buff built into pack leader there. Next up is the full talent tree rework. So the talents have been shuffled around to a significant degree and enables obviously different build combinations. The implications of this are obviously significant, but it's pretty difficult to analyze exactly how, because I just don't know what builds will be optimal, right? We need simulations for that in this day and age. You can't just wing it. You can't just, like, anytime even the smartest of people have cooked together builds on PTR and stuff, they're always wrong. Like, the simulations always override in the end, so I'm not going to waste my time on it. I will bring you developments on, potential builds and how it all looks when we do have those simulations. So obviously subscribe for that. But what I've done here is I've just shown you the new spec tree with the changes highlighted. So anytime you see the hunter color on your screen, well, that talent has either new or it has moved from somewhere else in the tree or something like it. And everything that's just gray or white here that's exactly as it was before. So yeah, this is mostly just for a quick look. I won't analyze too deeply because honestly, Sims will be doing that for us eventually. I don't like to speculate on things that are almost certainly going to be wrong. I'd rather tell you exactly what I know, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Next up come the tier set bonuses, and the tier set bonuses work very differently in patch 11.2 than they did before. Now, instead of having spec-specific set bonuses, like they tried that experiment last season with the sort of the 2-piece would be like a special proc, and then the 4-piece like a so-called jackpot, and then the 4-piece would be some other gimmick related to that proc. I didn't necessarily hate it, but it was perhaps a little bit bland, especially because it was all specs in the game that had basically something like that. Well, the new experiment is, instead of giving the specs different tier set bonuses, we're going to give the hero talents different set bonuses. So Hunter in total has 3 different set bonuses and 2 per spec, because each spec only has access to 2 hero talents. So starting with the Dark Ranger tier set bonuses for Beast Mastery. 2-piece. Black arrow damage is increased by 10%, okay, and bleak powder damage is increased by 20%. Whenever you fire a black arrow, it reduces the cooldown of Call of the Wild, cooldown, by 2 seconds. So I'm not a huge fan of this one. It's a bit boring and lackluster, and I find it disappointing that the second part relies on using Call of the Wild, which is not a guaranteed / lock-in talent in all builds. For example, now, like if you've been playing recently, you know about the no CD pack leader Mythic Plus build, which is the most widely used one, probably generally the best Mythic Plus build right now. Well, of course that's pack leader, but still, especially given how they've redesigned the talent tree to put a lot of power in Dire Beast over on the right side, it'll probably not be possible to get, all the Dire Beast stuff and get all the Call of the Wild stuff. And so if we want to play with the new stuff they've made, like Wild Speaker down here, well, then we'll probably have to sacrifice, if not Call of the Wild entirely, then at least Wild Instincts or Bloody Frenzy capstone nodes, which are what make Call of the Wild so sexy. Call of the Wild, sort of on its own, is not that great of a cooldown. And so I'm not a huge fan of this because it kind of locks Dark Ranger Beast Mastery into potential Call of the Wild builds and kind of shifts us away from Dire Beast. But maybe that's the intention. Maybe they want Dark Ranger to be the cooldown-based build and Pack Leader to be the Dire Beast build. I guess fantasy-wise, it kind of makes sense, but yeah, let me know what you think. The 4-piece is Withering Fire's Black Arrow damage increased by 25%. So Withering Fire is basically just the black arrows that we cast during our cooldowns. And whenever you consume a Death Blow proc, your Black Arrow procs that you get from kill commands mainly, those have a 50% chance to cause all of your Black Arrow sort of multipliers during your cooldowns, during your next Withering Fire, to fire 1 additional Black Arrow. So if I'm reading this right, so this one is worded a little bit weird, because it says, consuming Death Blow in general has a 50% chance to cause all Black Arrow barrages during your next Withering Fire to fire 1 additional Black Arrow. So it says, during your next Withering Fire. And that seems to just mean Call of the Wild in general. Because Call of the Wild is what fundamentally activates Withering Fire. So I guess the thing I said earlier, where like it feels like we're being shoehorned into Call of the Wild, maybe that's actually fine, because Withering Fire, like the capstone node of Dark Ranger to begin with, already relies on it. So you'll probably pretty much not see no CD Dark Ranger builds. So fair enough. But it is worded a little bit weird, because it says, during your next Withering Fire. So whenever you consume Death Blow, you have a 50% chance to cause all the Black Arrow barrages during your next Withering Fire to fire an additional Black Arrow. Like, okay, so, that will just happen all the time then, no? Like, you will get tons of Death Blow procs between your cooldowns, and you just need to roll a 50% chance once, and then your entire next cooldown will be buffed. So the fact that there's a chance here, it just reads a little like, it makes me think I'm misunderstanding it, but that's just how the words, what they seem to mean to me. in any case, it just adds a little bit of extra AoE power to, like AoE burst mainly, to Dark Ranger's cooldown, Call of the Wild. Because normally it only fires 2 extra black arrows, well now it fires an additional one. So that's a significant increase in black arrows AoE during your cooldowns. Next up is the Pack Leader tier set bonus for Beast Mastery. So the 2-piece is all pet damage increased by 5% and beast damage increased by 15%. So beast damage refers to the boar, the bear, and just those 2 really for Pack Leader. And whenever you summon a beast, which happens, every 30 seconds, minus however many kill commands and so on you're casting, they grant 8% haste, mastery, or critical strike chance based on the beast summoned for 8 seconds. I don't know at the moment which beast is associated with which stat, but the overall point here is that attaching secondary stats procs to class mechanics is generally really, really good for overall gear scaling and power. And I think this looks like an extremely powerful 2-piece set bonus. Next up is the 4-piece, which is whenever you summon a beast, which already grants haste, mastery, or critical strike, now you also have a 25% chance to rouse the nearby wildlife into a stampede, charging your target with a lot of pets and dealing the equivalent 1800% attack power, which is a ton of damage, to your enemies over 7 seconds. And if this works anything like the existence stampede, and given the sort of plural nature of it, I'm pretty sure this is an AoE proc. So this adds, if I'm not wrong, and maybe I am, this adds a monstrous amount of passive AoE burst to Pack Leader's baseline kit. Like this will just happen on its own. One thing I'm slightly worried about is like Stampede historically is a narrow line of pets that charge through a target. And it doesn't take a lot of movement of that target for them to completely miss the Stampede. I don't know, so I'm not yet familiar with how they've changed the mechanics of it, if they have. I saw there was like some things in the spell data. Right now, PTR servers are down, unfortunately. But so this could be quite annoying if they haven't made it so Stampede follows the target. It's still really powerful, and your chance to summon it is increased to 100% while you have lead from the front. What is lead from the front? Well, that's the 12-second buff you get whenever you activate Beasted Wrath. And Beasted Wrath uptime is really, really high. So this is often going to be 100% chance. Just monstrously powerful 2-piece and 4-piece combination here, looking quite powerful. In terms of like how it affects your gameplay, I mean, when you get extra haste, that's nice. Adding haste to a spec through its mechanics is always a great time because high haste is just universally fun. So overall, I'm a fan. So in summary, the new Dark Ranger massively improves on Beast Mastery gameplay on AoE in particular, which partly replaces the old and boring sort of multi-shot for Beast Cleave every 4 or 6 seconds or whatever, replaces that loop while simultaneously making Black Arrow far more exciting and powerful in general. Time will tell about its numbers, especially compared to Pack Leader with its very sexy tier bonus, but mechanically it looks promising. More automatic die beasts that are also more powerful also feeds into the zoo fantasy of Beast Mastery in a nice way. Especially combined with Pack Leader, you're going to summon more pets. And there's the Stampede from the set bonus. Like they're just... Pack Leader BM is going to be even more zoo-like than it ever has been before. While Dark Ranger is going to obviously lead more into that sort of hunter-based Black Arrow damage. The talent tree rework pretty clearly makes the right side the dire beast side here. And it looks like we may get to choose between cooldown-less zoo builds, mostly around Pack Leader, and more traditional Call of the Wild-based 2-minute builds on the left, which will mostly, I think, be a Dark Ranger-based thing. So overall, quite positive. We'll see how it all shakes out. But yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this sort of content, please check out my patreon.com/Azortharion, where you can get access to my Season 3 Hunter UI and week hours when they come out, the Huntmasters chat in my Discord, video/log/armory and gear reviews at higher tiers of Patreon, Discord one-on-one personal coaching with me, and more. And whether you're sub or not, you should join my Discord to communicate with me directly, linked in the description. And yeah, other than that, like, comment, subscribe, Let me know what you'd like to see more of in the comments. I'm going to do a similar video to this one for all 3 specs over the coming week or so. And yeah, peace.